Oh, also, quick thing before the video starts, I'm sorry if my voice is raspy at all. I've been ill, and I'm currently dying. But I hope you still enjoy the video. June has gone and passed, and we've had some really good records come out this month. Some albums I've been excited for a while, and some that I'd never heard of until now. Either way, they're all here for a good reason. That reason being because they're good. So join me on our journey through the albums I enjoyed that released during the month of June. Disclaimer, I once again did not listen to every single album that released in June. I am not a wizard, or a time traveler, or anyone who can do things in a matter of seconds. We open with King Krule's newest release, Space Heavy. King Krule's music has always been really difficult to describe for me. He has a very specific style that I haven't really seen replicated by anyone else, at least not successfully. He's a very unique artist and wears that on his sleeve, and in Space Heavy he takes that to the next level. This is probably his tightest album to date. It's clear he had a theme and vibe in mind, and he stuck with it from the beginning. The album feels like this psychedelic, lonely and atmospheric journey through an empty planet that only you inhabit. It feels like loneliness, but it also feels like comfort. There's a warmth to this record that makes me feel okay and safe. It makes me want to be alone, to recharge for a bit, because sometimes we all need some alone time to just rest and reset. 9 out of 10. Honestly, every song on here is worth listening to. It's really hard to pick just a handful. Seaforth, Empty Stomach Space Cadet, Sea Girl, and If Only It Was Warmth. Country is an odd genre, and gets a lot of slack thrown at it. I wouldn't really call this a country album, but it's definitely some odd mutation of it. 3D Country is a fucking romp, and I cannot get enough of it. From the opening track, you are thrown right into the deep end. For the next 4 minutes, you are in for the ride of your life, as the opening track, 2122, bounces itself around your brain unpredictably and rapidly. If you aren't already immediately hooked, then you better leave already, because we're only just getting started. From front to back, Geese craft a record that jumps from insanely off-the-wall and incredibly unique, to quite simple country with incredibly well-written, witty, and quotable lyrics. It all comes together to create something incredible and a huge highlight of the year. 9 out of 10. Some key tracks here are 2122, 3D Country, Undua, Mysterious Love, and Demoto. Squid return after quite a long while considering how prolific their contemporaries have been. 2 years after their debut, we received their sophomore album, Oh Monolith, in all its glory. Was it worth the wait? I think you already know the answer to that, but let me go through it anyways. Oh Monolith is a much shorter album than Bright Green Field, and that did worry me a little bit when I first saw. One of the things I loved the most about Bright Green Field were the long songs that would build and build and build into something enormous in scale. Songs like Narrator and Pamphlets. The longest song on this record was only 6.5 minutes, but upon hearing the singles, I was immediately sold. I could tell what sort of sound the band were going for, and I knew they could knock this out of the park. And they did. They really did. Oh Monolith is quite a departure from their original post-punk sound, as it incorporates a lot more from genres such as experimental rock and art punk. In fact, there isn't much that could be considered post-punk here at all. This album is incredibly unnerving in so many ways. Each song manages to sound off in their own way as they detail the paranoia that the world is suffering through currently and the civil unrest that is occurring. The civil unrest that is bound to turn into rioting. At only 8 songs, this is a very tight album. It's obvious that each of these songs were thought through and crafted meticulously to be the best that they can be, because so many of them are so layered and textured, even if it is to an uncomfortable degree. Oh Monolith shows that Squid have the same potential as any of the other Windmill bands as they go on their own endeavours. While BCNR go into art pop and Black Midi into avant prog, Squid will go into art punk, or really whatever the fuck they want to do. 9 out of 10. It's hard to pick standout tracks for this one, but I'm going to make myself do it anyways. Siphon Song, Undergrowth, The Blades, and Green Light are my major highlights. Probably, but honestly, it changes. All the songs on here are amazing. To describe this album in one simple word, it would be fun. This album is so much fun to listen to. Every time I listen to it, I can't stop smiling or singing along, or both. No one know how to craft an incredibly engaging and joyful experience, and they go all out. Every song in here has something unique and special to it that isn't present on any of the others. I noticed this album early on in the month and added it to my list of things to listen to, as its rising in popularity and genre tags were intriguing to me, and I am so glad I gave it the proper chance it deserved. If you haven't already listened to this record, do yourself a favour and do that right now. It is a Bandcamp exclusive exclusive album for the time being at $10, but I would honestly say it's worth it and you get to support the artist. The album will be available on streaming in around 6 to 8 months according to the band, and in the meantime, if you don't want to pay anything or you're just broke, you can listen to the singles, which are all of my key tracks anyway, as they give you a good enough taste of the album as a whole. If you're into jazzy funk with a synthy side platter, then this is your album, baby. 9 out of 10. Go check out the singles, which are I'm the President, The Abyss, and Crash the Car. They are all stunning. King Gizzard returned with their 24th studio album, which is just insane to say. The band show no signs of letting up either, as last year they released 4 records. Their latest outing, PetroDragonic Apocalypse, or Dawn of Eternal Night and Annihilation of Planet Earth and the beginning of Merciless Damnation, which I will not be repeating, is their second foray, as far as I know, into metal. Their first venture into the genre was all the way back in 2019, which in terms of King Gizzard, that's a long time, with the album Infest the Rat's Nest. I really enjoyed that record when it released, but this is a whole new level. Infest the Rat's Nest is good, but it can definitely feel messy or disjointed at times. It seems that the band have learned from that and that have managed to create one of the tightest and most fluid records I have heard all year. Every song transitions perfectly into each other and it makes the full listening experience glorious and satisfying. Whether it's the full album or just specific songs, this record is amazing at building atmosphere, and it keeps that King Gizzard flair that everyone knows and loves, or at least fucking better. It's silly, it's goofy, and it has a good message behind it. You know, don't kill the planet and stuff. 8 out of 10. Check out the tracks Motor Spirit, Gila Monster, Dragon, and Flamethrower. They're all amazing and definitely worth your time. Mathcore is an interesting genre to me. I haven't delved very far into it, but it's still fascinating and I've liked what I've heard. Pupil Slicer's sophomore release Blossom is no exception. I wasn't sure what to expect going into this, given the band's quite violent name but tame album art and cover. After listening, I can say it actually does fit quite well. Blossom is an intense album, an intense ride that doesn't really let up for its 46-minute runtime, but throughout it, it changed itself up multiple times with new ideas and sounds that keep it fresh and definitely doesn't make it just screaming and yelling in your ear for 3/4 of an hour. I need to learn to breathe. Some of the best tracks here are the ones that shake things up a lot, like the song at Creation's End or Dim Morning Light, which combines elements of emo, post-rock, and even slowcore at times, mainly the opening riff to Dim Morning Light. The album also gets a bit industrial at times, and even has a spoken word track. This is a big recommend if you want to get into the mathcore scene with something lighter. It's definitely convinced me to try out more albums. 9 out of 10. If you're still uncertain, try out the tracks The Song at Creation's End, Dim Morning Light, and the title track, Blossom. One of my favourite albums of all time is Jordan Mason's Divorce Lawyers, I Shaved My Head, because of its incredibly in-depth writing and use of metaphors to depict transgenderism and how it can affect marriage and relationships as a whole. Now, this album doesn't really do the latter, but it does use cryptic and sexual metaphors to depict not just relationships and marriage, but life as a whole. The Wailer, Home Is Where's sophomore release, is a Midwestern emo album at heart, but it incorporates a lot of interesting influences from other genres such as indie folk, anti-folk, and even some country. It's quite clear that this record was quite heavily inspired by the likes of Jeff Mangum of Neutral Milk Hotel, even if they ended up sounding more like Jordan Mason. But that's okay, as I feel they take the inspiration and really work with it. Songs like Yes, Yes, 1,000 Times Yes lean heavily into those sexual metaphors, portray a loveless marriage, and the way they're written are incredibly engaging and hard-hitting, along with the amazing and passionate vocal performance. It combines everything I love about Midwestern emo and indie folk into a really nice bag, and I hope to see even more from this band in the future. 9 out of 10. Go check out the songs Skin Meadow, Yes, Yes, 1,000 Times Yes, and Nursing Home Riot. You may know Lanterns on the Lake from the game Life is Strange, as their most popular song, Through the Cellar Door, was featured on there. You may also know Lanterns on the Lake because your partner is a huge Life is Strange fan and wants you to listen to the music from the game. I'm personally in the latter camp. I found out that the band were releasing a new album and told them about it, and they got incredibly excited, and kept track of all the singles that came out and made sure to remind me to listen to the album when it released. I slowly forgot about the album as I had a lot of other releases to keep track of, but the time came to sit down and listen to it with them, as they were excited for me to hear it. And if they're excited, then I'm excited too. Just to a little lesser degree. I enjoyed the album, I can safely say that. It's a nice listen and it isn't overly long either, so even at its weaker moments, it doesn't tend to drag or overstay its welcome. It does have some major highlights such as the final single, Real Life, with its indie rock dream pop fusion for the first 4 minutes, before it comes to a sudden end and in comes a very pretty piano outro with just Wild and You standing together in an empty hall. Thumb of War also with its incredibly grandiose feel and the closing track Last Transmission acting as a nice and somewhat climactic finale. The songs that fall in between are good but can be a bit unremarkable at times. Overall though, it's still a decent 7 to 8 out of 10. Standout tracks are the tracks I already mentioned, Real Life, Thumb of War, and Last Transmission. I apologise in advance for how I'm going to butcher probably every single title in this section, but I do not speak Icelandic. Anyway, Sigur Rós returned after just over 10 years. The previous full-length Hak Baker actually turned 10 2 days before this album released. With Ata, I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I've genuinely googled all of these before doing this just so I don't butcher things horribly, or at least to the best of my ability. Ata is a bit of a different direction for the band. They're usually known for their epic post-rock arrangements with albums such as, oh fuck me, I'll Get His Buryin, and I'm gonna be honest, I have no clue how to actually pronounce this album's title. You know, it's the two Why does this band have such stupid album titles? I'm sorry. The two brackets, but Ata opts to go in a more ambient and classical direction. Now, this isn't something they haven't done before. They experimented with this on their album Vastory from 2012, and even then, pretty much all of their albums have elements of classical or modern classical, whatever the difference between the two may be. Ata is definitely their most classical-oriented album to date, though, and it's clear as to the reason why. The band have changed a lot in the past 10 years. They've also changed a lot throughout the band's entire lifetime. During the past 10 years, the band have been experimenting a lot with unique albums such as 22 Degree Lunar Halo and Variations on Darkness, which are remix albums of past unreleased material turned into something completely new and unique. We also got Rude One, which is a 24-hour ambient album which unfortunately I do have to say is quite boring. Either way, going from then to now, listening to Ata, the subtle changes in direction make sense for such a seasoned band. Ata feels like a new beginning and an exciting one too. 9 out of 10. Some of the key tracks here are, oh god, I was dreading this bit, and I'm sorry for butchering all of them probably, Blolberg, Skell, Kletter, and 8. Thank god the closer has a normal fucking title. I'm not reading 8 out in Icelandic. Oh my fucking god, Ata is just 8 in Icelandic. I've been saying it this entire time. Okay, moving on. Here's a quick little recommendation. Caterina Barbieri is a name I hadn't heard before, but this album has definitely piqued my interest for a take on electronic music. This is a tight, neatly wrapped, incredibly solid electronic ambient album with some very entrancing cuts. It's quite hypnotic and wraps these swirling electronics around you like ribbons. It's a good listen if you're into progressive electronic or want to dip your toes into the genre. Barbieri does a very good job at blending the ambient and soft side of electronic with the more harsh and abrasive side. Very neat stuff. 7 out of 10. Check out the track Alphabet of Light specifically if you want a nice taste for the album. This was recommended by a friend, and I wasn't expecting to like this as much as I did. I listened to RXKNephew's other mixtape from last month, and I found it fine, nothing insanely interesting, but nothing offensively bad. This, on the other hand, has much more flair and personality compared to RXKNephew's mixtape, and that may be due to the feature of DJ Rude One. I'm a massive fan of the drumless style this entire tape has, especially as it's fused with the style of East Coast hip-hop. Its production is smooth, and it flows really well. It's really all I can ask for a solid hip-hop tape. 8 out of 10. Check out the tracks Raw Dope, No More Dreaming, and Way More Than a Little for a good taste of this mixtape. Going into this, I had no idea what to expect. I don't think I could have ever expected this, though. This album is stunning, and tells an amazing story from front to back. It's staged as a radio station, which makes everything feel much more believable and much more engaging. A radio station that is broadcasting the final moments of the world. The album opens with news reports of riots and civil unrest. It's made immediately clear that this world is in turmoil and has been for a while, and it seems that the only way to end it is to end everything. As the album progresses, it slowly begins to realise that. It opens quite optimistically and cheerfully with Doolally, which is one of the weaker tracks on here. It's still an engaging opener and it drew me in, but it wasn't what sold me on this record. The following track, Windrush Baby, is where I began to pay more attention. The album incorporates a lot of unique sounds ranging from poppy reggae to post-punk and even indie folk. It goes everywhere, but it does it in places that always feel just right. It's clear that Baker knows his way around music and he weaves it around his finger. My only real gripe with the record are the skits that come between a lot of the songs and the weaker first half. The album really picks up in its second half, and that's probably due to the fact it becomes much more serious as the end of the world comes closer and closer. 8 out of 10. Key standout tracks here are Full On, Run, Telephones for Eyes, Dying to Live, Almost Lost London, and the closer, The End of the World. A lot, but honestly I don't think I can narrow it down any further. Just listen to the full thing. Most of us only know Portugal the Man from that one song from 2017. Ah, fuck. What was it called? Something about being a rebel? I think it was called Rebel Just for Kicks or something. Anyway, that's not important. What is important is that the band actually have more than one song. Crazy, I know. Chris Black Changed My Life is the latest release from Portugal the Man, and it's been a long time coming. It's been 6 years since their previous album Woodstock, so where have they been all this time? A lot has happened to the band in the past 6 years, and a lot of it unfortunately has not been good. Chris Black, the man the album gets its title from, was a friend of the band who passed in 2019, and it shook them all to their cores, but they didn't let it get to them enough to where they weren't able to do anything. John Gurley, the band's lead singer, stated that this record is the first time he has ever felt like he's created a complete product, something that can be experienced as a record front to back, and has a message to it. That message being about how important it is to have a Chris Black in your life, especially in your darkest times. Even in this turbulent and messy world, we need someone to rely on. The album itself was surprisingly good and had some major highlights. It did really feel like a cohesive and fully thought out experience, and it was clear that this album had a lot of heart and soul put into it. I really love how the lines, "because the present has a past, now you're fucked up / stuck here forever," are repeated throughout the record, and to quite profound effect. I mean, it literally opens and closes with those lines, and I love shit like that. 7 out of 10. Check out the tracks Grim Generation, Times of Fantasy, and Anxiety, Clarity. I actually initially wasn't the biggest fan of this album when I first heard it. I mean, I did like it, and some of the songs here really stuck out to me, but as a whole, I didn't see myself returning to it much. When I did eventually return to it for this video, I found myself really liking what I was listening to. I'm not sure what's exactly changed, maybe I just started liking fun again. Now that definitely isn't to say this album is perfect, because it isn't. I have quite a few gripes with it, like how a lot of it feels like her trying to be the next Taylor Swift, but not being able to achieve what makes Taylor Swift Taylor Swift. It's in the writing. And it also definitely could have been shorter, but I digress. What we do have is a really solid collection of tracks that range from surprisingly good to pretty not good. The good does outweigh the bad though, don't worry. We have songs like the title track and opener, Body Better, The Band and I, and 2 Weeks Ago, which are all really good songs for multiple different reasons. They all feel like Peters' own things as opposed to her trying to impersonate someone else. While I can definitely still compare them to other songs by other people, I can tell that these are more inspirations than just Peters trying to be something she isn't. She tries to do the Taylor Swift thing where she's snarky and cleverly snide towards her exes, but it just comes across as annoying and venty. Songs like Watch and Run feel more like vent pieces than actual songs, and I don't really get any enjoyment out of listening to them. I wouldn't let that put you off though, as there are some really great cuts on here. In fact, the majority is good. 8 out of 10. Go check out the tracks The Good Witch, Body Better, The Band and I, and 2 Weeks Ago. Swans return with an enormous project entitled The Beggar, a long-awaited album that's been teased since 2019. After the release of Leaving Meaning, the band's 2019 record, they seemed to go dark for quite a bit, probably due to COVID. But they returned in 2022 with a new fundraiser for a new album, much like all of the previous New Era Swans albums. You could pay money for a collection of current demos and some other goodies depending on how much you paid in order to fund the creation of the record. Once funding was fulfilled, recording commenced, and all we had to do now was wait. The Beggar, I feel, is quite a unique record in Swans' discography due to how it fits into their overall library. This is Swans' 16th full-length LP, and as a band, it seems that they wanted this record to incorporate sounds from every era of their history. We have callbacks to not just the 2010s trilogy, but their gothic rock and folk era from the 90s and late 80s, and even some callbacks to their no-wave era from the early 80s. Over the course of these 2 hours, we see the history of Swans intertwined with some of Gizzard's most personal writing to date. He sings about death and disease and how we as humans are the cause of all that is wrong with the world. We are the heart of all that is bad. The album also links back thematically to the trilogy and how it discusses its own themes and the themes seen there. This is all something I go into much more detail in my review for the record, which you can read in the description, as is with all the albums I talk about in this video. I don't want to spend too much time over explaining everything, but if you were to draw a triangle with each album from the trilogy in the corner, The Beggar would sit right in the middle of everything. 10 out of 10. This is another one of those records where it's best to sit down and listen to the full thing, but I'll still give you some of my favourite cuts. Paradise Is Mine, Michael Is Done, The Beggar, Ebbing, and of course the absolutely fucking-normous The Beggar Lover 3. And now we have the singles of the month. No EPs caught my eye this time unfortunately, but we still have plenty of singles to listen to, so let's fucking go. A really fun comeback for Slowdive. A pretty simple song, but an effective one in my eyes. I really like the guitar work on the chorus, and while it doesn't feel as strong as anything from their 90s output, I wouldn't really expect it to. I'm still excited for what their next album has in store. I am absolutely shocked by this. Never did I think Rodrigo could reach heights like these, but by God she has. The song begins quite simply. It's another piano ballad like Driver's License, but then it morphs into something so much more. The second verse kicks in and that drum machine is where everything changes. This song features some of her best vocal performances to date and some of her best lyrics. The build up from beginning to end is phenomenal, and I adore how hard it goes by the end with those cymbal crashes alongside the repetitive piano chords. It all works so well to make something incredible. I cannot wait for the next album. A complete switch around and contrast to her previous single. April's newest single, You Don't Even Know Who I Am, is incredibly sinister and depressing as she lists the things that she knows about us but we know nothing about her. It feels stalkerish and unsettling but also depressing. It feels like she only wants attention from whoever she's watching and wants to keep them safe, but they don't even know she exists and probably never will. A band I'd never heard of before now, and another band YouTube decided to just throw at me. This single's music video was recommended to me and I fell in love with it. Elestial are a very small indie band from New South Wales, Australia, and they've already got me in love with this dreamy indie rock banger. The atmosphere is gorgeously nostalgic, it feels like floating. I love the lyrics, this band shows a lot of promise. I really hope they continue. Animal Collective return was something I don't think I ever would have expected, and that's a 22-minute ambient pop drone piece with elements spanning all over their career. This song feels like a victory lap, as it reminds me of tracks from Sung Tongs, Feels, Merriweather Post Pavilion, and of course their most recent release, Time Skiffs. Whatever they're cooking, I'm incredibly intrigued, because if this is a lead single to an album, then my god, this is going to be something else. We love furry music in this house, and Nonnie is a perfect example of some great furry music. Her newest single for her, I think, upcoming album is really fun. It's a punchy, punky song that I can really get behind. It isn't dissimilar to her previous work, but that isn't a bad thing. I like it. Now, we all know how much I love The Last Dinner Party's previous and debut single, Nothing Matters, and since then, my love for the band has only grown. I've seen them live and loved every second of it, and I got to see the song live before it released on streaming, and I can safely say that Nothing Matters was far from a fluke. Sinner is an amazing, fun, energetic, empowering, and just overall fantastic song. Just go and listen to it. I formally apologise to say this, but I enjoyed a Mother Mother song. The most recent Mother Mother single is actually really good, and I am shocked to say it. It seems that a lot of bands are going in this post-punk revival route, and that definitely isn't a bad thing, if they can pull it off. While Mother Mother definitely bring their own flair to it, which I can give or take, the actual meat of the song is what I'm here for, and there are some meat on these bones. A complete surprise to me, and probably everyone, a new Sparklehorse album announcement alongside a single. Evening Star Supercharger is a wonderful song that reminds me of the peaks that Linkus reached in the 90s and early 2000s. It's wonderfully melancholy, gorgeously produced, and written to make me feel a type of sadness that not many songs can achieve. Linkus was an amazing songwriter, and this single leaves me very excited for this record. Rest in peace, Mark Linkus. An odd choice for a single, but I dig it. The song is a vibe and a half with how entrancing it gets. It becomes incredibly easy to get lost in that absolutely intoxicating production. It really shows how talented Clanton is as a producer. This is definitely the weakest of the three singles, but that doesn't make the song bad by any means. This is still stellar, and I'm sure will work even better in the context of the album. This song really sounds like that classic Blur we all know and love. Proper Britpop and shit. Anyway, this is a really good track and leaves me even more excited for their upcoming record. It's a really fun song which encapsulates a lot of Park Life and Great Escape era Blur, and I love it. I honestly didn't expect anything new from The Smile anytime soon, but here we are with an 8-minute post-rock single which has exceeded every single one of my expectations. I enjoyed The Smile's debut album, but this is on another level, and if this is any indication as to what their next record is going to sound like, then holy shit, sign me up. Actually no, inject this into my veins, because this might be one of the best things that the Radiohead gang have created in a long time. It shows they definitely still have it. And with that, we close. I hope you enjoyed this video and found some new stuff to listen to. I'm sorry this video is slightly late. I tried to get these videos out before the end of the following month, but obviously it is now August, and I'm sorry, but just a lot of stuff has been happening. Medical stuff mainly, that I'm not going to get into, but either way, I'm fine. I just wanted to get this video done, and now it is, because you're watching it. You can find all the reviews in the description, as I mentioned earlier, and I would highly recommend you go read them if you want more in-depth or insightful talks about the album, because I tried to actually talk about, obviously, more stuff in the reviews because I have more time, because I don't want to spend like 10 minutes on one album, because that would take a lot of editing and a lot of recording, and also I feel like that wouldn't be very engaging. It's probably better to just quick fire things, which is what I've been doing. But if you want more in-depth stuff, you can obviously go down below and read the reviews. They're all down there. I've reviewed every album on this list, and I try to do that with every video, at least going forward. And while you're down there, why don't you subscribe and like and maybe donate to my Ko-fi, because these videos don't make money because monetization, whatever, and I don't really want to change the way these videos are made because I enjoy making them in this style, so you can support me like that. But also just watching them in general is support enough, it's motivation, so it's fine. So either way, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you have a good morning, afternoon, evening, or night, and I hope you found something fantastic to listen to and your new album of the year has awaited you in this video. Goodbye.